Here we are, folks. Super tricky today. JWC double feature. First one was me reading my novella because I'm a goose and I got the times mixed up. But today is full of surprises all around. But today, here we are with our double feature. This is now JWC live stream story autopsy with Ricky and Tom. Hello, everyone. I'm Ricky. Live long and
Tom.
prosper. There's Tom, and we have a special guest, Amber Danson, our guest author. Hi, Amber. I hope you're doing well today.
Hi, everyone.
So, this is the story autopsy where we go over, like, we do reads, and we go over what's good, what's bad, what are the circumstances. It's almost like after it's written, a post-mortem or whatever. We try not to be hypercritical. It's all creativity. We're all just trying to refine our process. So we'll have some reads for you today, but before we do, we're going to do our little creative check-in. I have been writing 2 books simultaneously. I'm writing Chronicles of Chiram, which is a sci-fi story, and I'm writing Athenium, the Tales of Granddad Jack. And I'm having a blast doing both of those. Just wrote 1,000 words of the latter today, and it's just this wild story, this fantasy, and it's thrilling to write. And Chiram 6 has been great too. Had some breakthroughs with that outline. Um, really, really good stuff. Now, how about you guys? Amber, how have you been, and how's your creative life going?
Well, things have been much better lately. When the whole COVID thing hit, the messed up way the world was behaving just robbed me of the ability to plot for some reason.
Oh
I
my.
had to I had to give up outlining my novels and just wing it.
Mm,
So I did that for a couple years and then decided to try writing an outline again, and last night wrote one.
excellent, excellent. I think I saw bits and pieces of that, uh, and it looks sound. Um, that's good to get back into outlining if you miss it. Not everybody likes it. Uh, I feel very satisfied when I do an outline, even though it's not exactly a purely creative process, but it helps me. Like, how do you feel about outlines?
Well, I can get 3,000 words written a day with a good outline. And then when I'm winging it, it's hard to do as much because I have to do the thought process that goes with the outline while I'm doing the writing.
Hmm.
Yeah, I could see that. My outlines are literally like verbatim place markers for a word budget. It's like, write 200 words of this, and it's like, if I do that, like, I got 1,000 words today off of a word budget for that Athenium project. Great. Well, I'm glad you're outlining again and keeping fresh creatively. There's the transcendent force of creativity, man. It's the only answer to the way the world's been lately. All the
Hmm.
chaos that we've been enduring, just
Sure.
just to stay creative. Tom, speaking of staying creative, Tom, how about you, man? How you doing?
Oh, really good. Like I said, right now I'm juggling the Florida novel, which is wrapping up, I believe. I've got a good feeling about that. And I'm also working on The Bride. And what I've decided
Oh,
to do with The Bride was, instead of just sticking to the chronological order, I'm going to just write. If when I get inspired from an incident or a period of time, I'll write a chapter of that. Like, I just wrote a chapter yesterday that took place in the heart of Nazi Germany, 1943. And I had an idea, and I said, that connects up to her past. And I said, and I wrote it up, and I'm very satisfied. It's like 1,200 words, good size, just perfect size for a Vela chapter. Um, so
Fantastic.
it's coming along very good. So
That's marvelous. I like to hear it. Juggling multiple projects and your plans for them and stuff. It's good that we're all staying creative. So many good projects, so little time, right?
sure.
Now we'll move on briskly to our read. Um, Amber, do you have anything to read this evening?
Yes, I have a sad short story I wrote a little while ago about an elderly woman and her dog. It's called Bittersweet. Let me get it sharing here.
Thank you. Yeah, it's a warning, folks. We got a tearjerker here, but especially
Mhm.
with Amber slinging it, it's going to be
Yeah.
impactful for certain.
Okay. Edith looked at the dog and burst into tears. She covered her face with her handkerchief and turned away, unwilling to burden anyone with her grief. But little Buddy, made anxious by her unhappiness, nosed at her and whimpered until she took him into her arms and stroked his silky brown fur. You okay, Ma? Edith's son in law paused on his way out the door, a cardboard box in his arms. Edith nodded without looking at him. She kept her tear blurred gaze fixed on her tiny dog. Derek hesitated, then carried the box out to the van. Edith stayed in the family room, but eased herself into her favorite chair, tucking Buddy into her lap as she had done so often over the years. Her hip ached if she stood for too long.
Mhm.
She ruffled Buddy's fur with her arthritis crabbed fingers. He licked her hand before craning his neck to look up at her with his bulgy eyes. He was a long haired Chihuahua, no more than 3 pounds of needy dog. His pointed little muzzle had gone gray. I'm so sorry, she murmured while her aching fingers ruffled his fur. I'm too weak to live alone any more. Iris tried, but the nursing home has a strict no pets rule. She'll take good care of you. Edith's throat closed, and she wept silently, unable to bear the pain of leaving Buddy behind. He had been constantly by her side for nearly 10 years. Her daughter Iris was taking him to live with her, so it wasn't like she would never see him again. Part of the reason Edith agreed to move into the assisted living community Iris picked out was because she would be living closer to her daughter. There would be nothing to prevent Iris from bringing Buddy to visit once or twice a week. But it won't be the same, Edith said, fresh tears coursing down her withered cheeks. Buddy planted his tiny feet on her chest and licked her face anxiously, wanting to make everything all better. He was very distressed when all she did was cry harder, clutching him to her bosom. Iris came into the room, checked her stride, and approached her mother more slowly. Kneeling beside Edith's chair, she put her arm around her mother's shoulders and said, It'll be okay. Edith leaned into Iris's partial embrace. He'll be lonely without me. I'm home all day, and you know he loves the kids. Iris rubbed Buddy's head and smiled. Besides, now you'll have no choice but to go out there and make some friends. All I have in common with those people is being close to death. Don't sour yourself so soon, Iris chided gently. Soon? I'm 90. There's nothing premature about anything I do. Edith
Mhm.
buried her face in Buddy's fur. Iris sighed and ran her hands over her silvering dark hair. I'm retiring, Ma. I'll have plenty of time to come see you and plenty of time to give Buddy the attention he needs. This move isn't a death sentence. Edith kept her face turned away. She had never been thrilled with the idea of going into a nursing home, but once she had learned that she wouldn't be able to keep her dog, the resentment began to build. After a few moments, Iris sighed and left the room. When the sharp click click of her footsteps faded, Edith lowered Buddy into her lap. These could be her final moments with him, and she wanted to make the time count. She gave him every bit of the special lovin' she knew he enjoyed until he fell asleep in her lap. All too soon, Iris came to fetch her for the 4-hour car trip to the place that called itself charming and compassionate in the brochure. Edith was willing to bet the place was full of kitsch and tacky decor, with overly saccharine attendants and patronizing nurses. How was she supposed to retain her dignity after being patted on the shoulder as one might pat the head of a small child? She stared out the window in sullen silence, speaking only when spoken to. She kept Buddy in her lap, rubbing him behind his ears to keep him blissfully asleep. They stopped at an open air cafe for lunch. Buddy stayed close beside Edith, accepting the tidbits she offered with solemn pleasure. He knew something was wrong and was hoping he could fix it by being as good a dog as possible. Tears stung Edith's eyes when they pulled up outside the nursing home, but she clenched her jaw against the grief. She cuddled Buddy for a moment before opening the car door. After she climbed out of the car, she set Buddy on the seat and closed the door. His pleading look nearly broke her. Derek took her bags, giving her an encouraging smile that she wished she could slap right off his face. He was the one who had talked Iris into sending her to this place. An orderly led them to the tiny efficiency apartment that would be Edith's home from now until she died. The place was Hallmark card bland, consisting of a living room, bedroom, and bathroom. The closest thing she had to a kitchen was the nook that contained a tiny fridge, coffee maker, and microwave. Next to it was a stainless steel half sink. I guess I won't be cooking any more, Edith said sourly, surveying the apartment with distaste. All this and I still can't have my dog with me. The orderly began an obviously prepared statement as to why pets weren't allowed. Edith tuned him out as she wandered over to the windows. Maybe she would have a view that would partially make up for being forced from her home. She pushed aside the flower-printed curtain and sighed with relief. The living room windows overlooked a neat lawn leading to a well-manicured path wandering through an acre-sized flower garden. The beauty of the view was enough to take away some of the sting. Not so bad, is it? Iris asked, joining her at the window. Edith let the curtain fall. It's enough. I won't be here long enough to get tired of it. Oh, don't talk like that. I'll bring Buddy by to visit in a few days. You'll see, everything is going to be fine. Edith didn't bother answering. She was too tired to argue, too tired to adjust to this much change. It would do no good to say so, not with her daughter beside her, hoping so desperately that everything would turn out for the best. Iris unpacked Edith's bags, having Derek help her with hanging pictures and scattering Edith's keepsakes around to make the tiny suite more personalized. As if that was going to help. Edith stayed by the window, peeking through the curtains at the garden and the few elderly people moving about in the distance. Her hip was starting to ache again, but she ignored it. She didn't want to get comfortable in her place of exile. Ma, Iris said softly after a while. Everything's set up for you. Derek and I need to get going. That's fine. Iris sighed and touched her mother's arm. Please don't make this harder. I don't like this either, but I live too far away to. I said it's fine. Edith turned away from the window with an attempt at a smile and accepted Iris's embrace. She knew that she would be risking her life if she continued to live alone in her condition. She just wished that Iris would have let her choose to take that risk instead of using her power of attorney to force Edith into a retirement home. When they were gone, Edith unbent enough to sit in the small recliner. She reviewed the materials left for her in a desultory fashion, knowing it wouldn't be of long-term importance. She had tried to explain to Iris that the delicate web which had allowed her to reach the ripe old age of 90 would be destroyed by her move. Iris thought she was being melodramatic. She'd know better before much longer. The church bells rang, a high silver sound from the tiny on-site chapel. It was a call to mealtime, according to the brochure. She found her cane and made her way to the dining hall. The people she met along the way were friendly, nearly smotheringly so. One of the ubiquitous orderlies insisted on walking with her to make sure she found her way without trouble. She supposed it had something to do with the cane she only occasionally leaned on. Edith found herself seated between two women who could barely stop talking long enough for her to provide a brief answer to their barrage of questions, interspersed with short, pointless stories. Across from her was an ancient gentleman, wearing an oxygen mask and playing footsies with her until she kicked him. The food was about the quality of an inexpensive TV dinner, and they wouldn't let her have any wine. She was firmly informed by an overly cheerful employee that alcohol wasn't allowed in the dining hall, so she couldn't even bring her own wine, and at any rate there was no outside food or beverages allowed. She ate little, deftly avoided an invitation to play bridge with the cackling hens and curlers. The old horn dog across from her attempted to invite himself to her room, but he was only half finished with his supper by the time she pushed away from the table. Despite protests from around the table, including suggestions from one of the orderlies that she might eat a little more, Edith turned in her tray and made her way back to her room. It was lonely without Buddy. She had a TV and her knitting, but not the small warmth of her dog sleeping across her foot. She watched the evening news in silence before deciding to turn in early. The bed was old but comfortable, but without her dog snuggled against her, she had real trouble sleeping. She cried a little, pushing her face into the pillow, until emotional exhaustion dragged her under. 2 days later, Iris stopped by as she had promised, bringing Buddy with her. The little dog went nuts when he saw Edith and catapulted himself into her arms. She laughed through her tears and fussed over him for most of Iris's visit. Iris asked how she was settling in, and Edith tried to think of how to answer without lying. I was invited to a bridge game, she finally said, settling for a partial truth. Iris beamed. See, I told you it wouldn't be so bad. How's Buddy doing at your place? Edith asked, to distract herself from the surge of guilt. He's really quiet. He'll adjust, though, because it's not like he's alone. Edith, who had been feeling more alone since the move, decided not to comment. Her days ground on in endless monotony. Others among the residents and staff attempted to socialize with her, but she accepted few of their overtures. She thought she owed it to herself to at least try to be happy, but nobody she met was able to fill the hole in her heart. She became more and more of a loner and frequently cried herself to sleep. Buddy never adjusted to the separation. He grew thin and sad and finally died a few weeks after being taken from his home. Iris was reluctant to tell her mother, but could think of no excuse for why Buddy couldn't come visit. When Edith learned that her dog was gone for good, she lost the will to live. She wasted away, just like Buddy, until she died broken-hearted just after her 91st birthday. Iris mixed Buddy's ashes with her mother's and sprinkled them together in the garden of the home where they had spent many happy years. There we go.
Oh my goodness. Like, wow. What an impalement of poetry and significance. It's unbelievable. Like, brutally honest, and just an agony, but just so truthful to what could happen. And the only thing that's worse for this person than losing her independence and facing the indignities of old age is the fact that she lost her dog. And it's like stepping into that position without your friend. I mean, way to write a brutal story, man. Like, that's instant hot and cold running trauma. I don't know that I'll ever forget that tale, which means bravo,
Yeah.
success of the highest sort. It's like stepping on a landmine and tragedy instead of an explosion, you know?
Yeah.
And it's just, oof. The horrible sense of Western civilization's failure is prevalent and inescapable. Tom, what did you think of that? Oof.
Oh, it was cathartic. Is a good way to put it. I imagine writing something like that could be a way to get rid of something you have gnawing in you that's
therapeutic.
bad.
Therapeutic,
right.
Yeah.
Release it through writing. Um, the only thing I would add to that would be a sense of how can I put it? A something to make created antagonist, someone who maybe someone annoying that annoys her that she's put
A
up with
a
forever.
tormentor. You want a tormentor after all that?
Wow, that's
Ooh.
someone that she realizes after all these years is tormenting her. That she didn't realize it
Wow.
until all this comes to a head for her. Like
Well,
a next door neighbor
I can't argue with him. It's the only way to make it more intense, more unbearable, is to add that feature to it. So not that it's lacking for torment. It's just
no,
yeah.
it's just I believe that a story needs for want of a better way to put it, some needs a good guy and a bad guy, and this is all just concentrated on this woman's story, which really works. Um, but if there's something that you could, or a good way to put it for me is there something that come in to someone to stick a pin into this person's life, into her, you know, poke at her. This is a little tiny pinprick that gnaws at her. It would that would bring it over the top for me. Just,
it would take it from a transition into a final exit poetically into a transition into doom. It's the only way to make it more annihilating and unforgiving. But I tell you, man, that's a great one. Bravo, Amber, and a nice read too. The fact that both their ashes get mingled in the garden at the end, and I can just see like pale sunlight and oblivion, and then that's it. It's like, what a success, man. Um, Thank you for that read, Tom. You have
yes,
anything for us, Tom? You have anything
I
for us
do.
that's not dark or tragic or achingly sad, so we can offset it? Because
Boy, oh boy.
I hate to have
Let
to
me see what I
follow
can
that
do.
one up. I'll tell you, you know.
I have a continuation of chapter 2 of the War of the God Shards, Night of the Inferno. Last time we left off, there was
Let's do
um,
it.
the bad guy was talking to the queen about bandits in the territory that they just can't seem to get rid of them. And actually, it's his bandits, and is waiting for he's collecting people to wait until he can maybe stage a coup. So right now they're talking about the trapping the bandits inside this canyon. So we have here, yes, how quick that she picks up on these things, he thought. He had gained control of the king 6 months ago, but he needed the queen also to carry out the last pieces of his strategy. Only then would he leave one of his mages behind to guide the kingdom in his direction. In 6 months he had not broken through her powerful will. Excellent, she said. When do you expect results? We will put their heads on pikes planted in the front courtyard below within a week. Very good. The queen raised a pale hand to her forehead. Getting tired, your majesty? Asked Morris. I'm rather tepid, yes. Perhaps I will go for a ride. An excellent idea. I would be careful where you ride, your majesty. Your advice is appreciated. Counselor, do you have any suggestions? She had no intention of going anywhere, he recommended. Alas, no, your majesty. I am from the eastern edge of Aerosol and have little experience of these mountains. My people live close to here, said Morris. The Rohana Pass has been trouble for years. With a small contingent of knights, you would be safe. Of this I am sure. Marina smiled with a gleam in her eyes. An excellent suggestion. I've not been near the mountains, or the forest for that matter, since this whole rebel ordeal began. Please attend to it, Lord Morris. At once, your majesty. May I only add that you should be careful along the Lucade cliffs. A merchant wagon filled with iron rods for the ramparts disappeared 10 days past. Thank you, Morris backed away and left the chamber, followed by Mordain. Within the hour, they had gathered a small squad of horse soldiers and had ridden out into the hills. Soon the castle was long gone as they approached a split in the mountain pass. The wind felt good on her face. Marina always loved being outside in the sun. To her, it had always given her a little freedom from her royal duties. Guards always surrounded her, but there was at least a release from most decision making. Decisions came up no matter where she traveled. Which direction do we go? She asked her soldiers with a look that made milk curdle. The question put them on edge. Only on rare occasions were the queen or the king so hostile. Stoic and unsympathetic they often were, but not cold-blooded. When no one spoke up, Marina smiled, sending chills down Morris's back. The edge was going off her less than pleasant disposition. She hated to ride without conversation along the way. No one had spoken for much of the ride. If no one spoke to her for the rest of the journey, her mood would not change, and it would seem like a ride to the gallows. On that cue, Armenka, captain of the guard, coughed into his gauntlet. "Ah, Captain, please do speak up." "Your Majesty, may I recommend using the Eastern Pass?" "You may, but isn't that the more dangerous route?" "Yes, ma'am, but it is only a rougher path to tread, a minor risk." "You are certain?" "As certain as I can be. It is devoid of known physical hazards. I've traveled personally along it within the past week. The path is level enough for our purpose." Marina nodded, as she thought. Smiling, she sat up higher in her saddle. "Very well, Captain. East it is. Proceed." Armenka nodded to his queen. He nudged his warhorse in the proper direction. The way was narrow in places, causing them to go slow. Within an hour they reached the eastern side of the Rahana Valley. Here the west-facing cliff wound like an enormous snake, following the course of the Rohana River. Along the trail, gaps in the forest appeared. Tall trees pushed right up to the edge of the trail. At one of these gaps, where the path was wider, Captain Armenka came to a stop. He strained his eyes toward the west. "Is something wrong, Captain?" asked Marina. "Wrong or not, there is something occurring across the river." He pointed to the west. The queen turned to look. Her guards remained impassive, unmoving. A tiny spot of sunlight reflected from the western trail. She saw black smoke rising through the trees. "How odd." "Yes, your Majesty." He dropped his arm to his side. At that moment, 5 outlaws swung out of the trees on long, knotted ropes without a sound. All hit the queen's guards on their horses. Upon impact, the outlaws lost all their forward momentum and dropped to the ground. Thrown from their mounts, 2 of the queen's soldiers bounced once on the ground and continued on off the cliff. The 3 other soldiers landed on the ground. In their chainmail armor, they were very slow to move. The 5 green-clad outlaws moved to the knights, using their daggers to kill them with minor struggle. None of the men in green got hurt. During the melee, Armenka sat up on his horse, not speaking. Queen Marina was too shocked even to breathe. The 5 outlaws in green gathered in a tight formation. The 2 tallest stood in the back, and the other 3 in the triangle in front of them. Their leader nodded to Armenka. Then they turned and fled into the trees. "Captain Armenka, what's going on?" asked Marina in a low whisper. She turned her head and looked toward the trees. 2 Galeneks, Orlad and Storth by name, stepped into the view from the trees. Each was over 8 feet tall and dressed in thick leather armor. They walked over to the queen's horse. One stood next to her and took her bridle. Their stench made Marina almost gag. She brought her kerchief to her mouth and nose. "Since you have asked, my queen, I will tell you. Suffice it to say that you are barren." "That is a lie. How dare you speak to me in that fashion?" "No, it is well known to my master. It is his contention that Verisol will have an heir when the king passes on. Thus the king needs a wife who can provide him with such." "You have always been faithful to me, Captain." "Not to you, to Verisol. My master has determined that this is the best course for all involved. I am sorry that it has to be this way." He looked at the nearest of the giants. "Take her away now." His words echoed back to them, for there was no one else nearby. Orlad the Galanek plucked Marina off out of her saddle like one would pick up a tankard of ale. Armenka gestured with his head toward the cliff. The giant nodded and strode toward the cliff edge. Once there, Orlad lifted the queen over his head with both hands. Her struggles were to no avail. He paused and looked back at Armenka. By the way, your majesty, said Armenka, Morda sends his regards for a safe flight. Armenka nodded. The giant grunted and hurled the queen over the edge. Armenka nudged his horse to the edge of the cliff. He looked over in time to see her spin head over heels in the air twice. She landed on an overturned wagon at the forest periphery. The impact shattered the wagon, impaling the queen on an iron rampart rod. Armenka smiled. He turned to the other Galanek. Get rid of her horse. Keep it if you wish. Bring the others to your camp. Start the avalanche as soon as I am gone. Make it look good. Armenka turned and finished his ride through the Rohana Pass. So.
Well, that was well done, Tom. Now, your Shirilla stories are usually whatever, but this had such drama to it. And you felt the scum. You felt it coming. Like there was just something electric about this dude. And then when it sprung and the violence, well executed violence, her falling and her body being destroyed that way, and the cruelty of the order. Fantastic stuff, man. I mean, brutal. It's a brutal show today, but we're getting high caliber brutality here. Because you can't argue with it, you know.
Yeah, when you said, "Have you got something that's not as dark?" I said, maybe a little bit.
No, look, I'm all about it because of the honesty that's involved. And now you've built up this debt because the queen is slain by conspiracy. And now there's all this, what is to be done? How will Shirilla take it? You know, I mean...
Wow. This is clear on the other side of the world. This is just setting up the drama, this gigantic drama. Marisol is on the other side of the Great Wall that divides the world. And so...
Cool. But I imagine it will
pick up.
Go ahead. Sorry.
Next week's chapter will pick up with O'Hara. He's
Oh, okay, yeah. Our old Earthling. Well, I was just wondering. I'm sure it will eventually tie into something that Shirilla has to deal with down the road. A nice gradual build up. I'm certain, and that's what I sense. So really good stuff, Tom. Thank you for reading.
This guy Mordain has his fingers in most of the world.
Mm-hmm.
Sort of like a George Soros type.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
So
Can't argue.
He's ready to spring a trap when it's biding his time for when there's an ancient prophecy that could go in two different ways. One toward peace for the world. One brings the world to a complete everybody at each other's throats. And you can imagine what Mordain is,
Fantastic. Amber, what did you think of that read?
It was very well done. I really only had 2 notes. It feels a little fast, but I mean, I can tell it's the first draft. So you can amp up the tension a little bit, then slow it down some more to make the queen's death more dramatic.
Sure.
And
there's a lot that happens. A lot of people get slaughtered, so you
can do it.
Now what the plan is, Mordain is going to have the king pick a new wife, and Mordain is going to impregnate her so that the king will think that the kid is his. Yeah, it's one of those royalty things, so
I feel the Shakespeare Game of Thronesiness, but go ahead Amber, what were you gonna say?
So go ahead.
The other notation I had is that chainmail armor isn't really that bulky. If you're wanting armor that slows them down, you want them in plate mail.
Well, yeah.
Well, the guys only need a couple seconds because when but maybe it's heavy chainmail, just enough.
I don't know. It's just I've dealt with a lot of medieval things, and chainmail was generally chosen because it's lighter than plate mail and lets you move faster than plate mail.
So there's all different types of armoring, and it's generally the harness is dependent on the period involved. If it's a full suit of chainmail with no gaps, head to toe, that's a lot of steel. It's very heavy. But obviously, they used to wear chainmail, and then they would put plate armor over the chainmail for a total no gaps. Now that's very heavy. You have to be in excellent shape to deal with that. You know.
Right.
The
Speaking of
more,
that, I think it's possible that these guards were like a little bit out of shape. That's where they were chosen. So when they
well,
were knocked off, they got the wind knocked out of them, and that's all they needed was a couple seconds.
yeah.
You know, and
A little bit of clarity to that end, and imply that they're courtiers, they're fat, you know, they're always at feasts,
yeah,
and they're out of shape, and they're long. The best thing to drop is saying they're long out of the saddle, just as a little piece of language.
I mean,
and then people will know,
yeah.
well, they're not chivalric, they don't regularly train on their horses, so they're dubious knights.
Right.
You know,
it's not like they picked three guys that were like three what's his name? You know, three Legolasses, say, you know. The captain of the guard chose these guys specifically for this trip. And he assured, these guys are okay. There's not going to be any trouble along the way. So, back to that, I don't think that they're out of shape, or they've been.
Yeah. The lighter stuff is like a brigandine, which is like it's a leather shirt that has all these plates that are interposed, and it's more articulate around the midriff. But otherwise, it's like corbeli, like boiled leather, where you get this really thick stuff, and it's not going to do anything about arrows. But it maybe will turn a sword, maybe. I mean, all that stuff is like, if you're not in plate, chainmail is great, but if it's not great if you get hit by a hammer or a mace, because then your meat goes like egg salad through the chainmail, and it makes these terrible intrusive wounds. Not to get overly brutal about it, but I know a thing or two about like combat damage. Like Amber, I've researched it a little bit, but anyway, other than that, it's a great little tale, Tom. Keep up the good work with that one, and hopefully we'll hear more next time. So we move on now to today's topic, which is a very, very important one that all creatives, and if you're a creative obsessor like me, you're thinking about it constantly, which is what drives us to write. As a creative obsession, the artist is constantly throwing down projects and doing works as to both perfect their process as well as to increase the creative world. And when we choose to write, why is it that we choose to write? What is behind writing? Is it a dream? Is it just something to do? In my particular case, it's a dream. All my goals are informed by it. I said from a long time ago that I wanted to write a book. And then around the time I was 25, I woke up and I was like, I'm gonna do this. I'm gonna start writing novels. And I prepared myself and I said, I gotta get a book in print. And then I realized, well, I got to get 10 books in print. And then I realized, how about audiobooks? How about translations? And I realized it's a blast crater of creativity. I want to make a deep impact and impression on the creative field. So it's a big dream. Don't know how I'm going to do it. Still trying to figure it out. And in the short term, it's the episodic satisfaction of writing chapters and just finishing a book. I really recommend it. Like, if it were up to me, if I were emperor of the world, everyone on earth would have to write a book as a requirement for life. Just one. Could be about deviled eggs, could be about trees, could be about anything. I don't care what it is, but just once, because it's so satisfying to write a novel. I'm sure you two will. I'm sure you two will agree. Now, may I ask, Amber, what drives you to write?
Well, at first it was insomnia. When I was 11 years old, I started telling myself bedtime stories that I made up on my own because I just couldn't sleep. And I started just revisiting the same story over and over again. And then when I was 12, I started writing it down.
Mm.
And that sort of became a creative addiction once I realized that I could write my own stories. My brain was like, holy cow, this is the best thing ever. And just flooded me with ideas.
Mm. Right on. Right on. Makes sense to me. Um, and in the great grand scheme of things, like how many books do you think you want to do? Like if you had your dream come true, like Bibbidi Bobbidi Boo, how many books would you have in print?
At least 50, because I have a 25 book arc planned for the Death's Nightmare series.
Wow.
The Shattered Sky has 6 books planned. My fantasy series has 6 books planned. There's a spin off to Death's Nightmare. I've got 9 books planned. Uh,
You gotta get
and
you
then
right.
I've got a whole series of fairy tale retellings.
No, I
But
know, and you do that well.
yeah, so it's just, I'm going to write till I die. And if I have any choice in the matter, I'm going to keep writing after I die.
Well, yeah. Haunt some library somewhere and just
Yeah.
where did this ream of paper, where did this story come from? There's
Or
ectoplasmic residue.
like V.C. Andrews. She
Mhm.
wrote books 10, 12, 15 years after she died. She kept writing books. So
Yeah.
if you follow her, or L. Ron Hubbard, drops dead 1986, still publishing in the 90s.
Nice.
So
Oh, I see what you mean now. Yes. All right. Well, I'll be
you can have a
dainty
ton
around
of
those people.
yeah, you can have a ton of stuff. Like one of my favorite writers, Robert B. Parker, wrote 42 Spencer novels, and he
Mm.
had notes for 15 or 20 more. So his estate just said, found a couple people that said to write the books. So that's a way of keeping him alive, also. So that's one.
Speaking of all that stuff, how about you, Tom? What
Uh,
drives you to write?
um, the need to entertain, even if it's just myself. Um, you know, I I'll come up with an idea and I say, "Ooh, that sounds really good. Let me see where I could pursue." Like this morning, I woke up with an idea for a story called "Everyone Wants to Kill Kate." Yeah, about a woman named Kate who's she was a special ranger, special forces ranger, and she's a survivalist, and she's living in this little town. And one day she's chosen to be the bait, the target of these 12 assassins that are chosen to just
Whoa.
go. They're invited to the town she lives and to kill her. And they have 48 hours to find her and kill her. The winner gets $1 million tax free, and they don't tell her that this is what's going on. So she
Wow.
has to use her skills to survive for 48 hours as she pieces together what in the world is going on. So I think that could be entertaining.
Very, very interesting. So you just have so many ideas that it's like it's almost useless to try to summon them all. It's almost like a
Well,
full-time job to get it, or like, in other words, like how many books do you have now? Not including awesome ideas that spontaneously occur like that through a muse flash. Because we all get, trust me, man, a month ago, I didn't know I was going to be writing this Granddad Jack book. And then it's just like, nope, it's time for you to write
right,
that, buddy. You know, it's just, you don't have a say in the matter. I love when creative obsession does that kind of thing.
right.
But,
So how
but go
much
ahead.
stuff do I have
Yeah,
written at the
in your,
moment?
and yeah, like if you could put it
Whew.
out. Yeah.
I have the 9 Shirella novels, The War of the God Shards. I have
Awesome.
Emily, which is 3 books. I have 3 Pentgrim novels, and I have enough Pentgrim stories to make 2 collections. I have enough short stories to make 7 or 8 collections. The Bride novel, my Florida novel, um, and I have enough screenplay ideas for when we're writing screenplays. That's another 40 or 50 projects right there. I say I'm closing in on 100 things, but I have maybe 30 actually written, 30 full books at least. Uh,
I
that I
know
can
you're gonna
back up.
you're gonna get it done. You're gonna get it done real soon, man. I know you are.
I have a
Um,
little spiral book that I keep right at my office where I write. That when an idea hits my head, I just grab it. You write down. Everyone wants to kill Kate. I write. I write it up to fill up the page, and the other side, put it back till the next one hits. So I don't lose track of
marvelous,
you know
marvelous.
stuff.
So that's the key,
So
folks, is that he dreams big, but he writes big. We're all throwing down, we're trying to throw down 1,000 words a day at the bare minimum, folks, because you can dream all you want, but if you don't do the typing, it ain't gonna, or in Tom's case, the scroll, which is, same difference to me. But if you don't do the actual footwork or the finger work that way, then you can dream all you want. It's not going to happen. So that's where the rubber meets the road. We don't just talk.
sure, 1,000 words a day, every single day, would give you 365,000 words, which is about 4 to 5 decent-sized novels.
Yeah, well,
I mean, you can't ask for more than that, right?
Stephen King said that he wasn't wrong, and my max has always been like faithful max, like 2,000 words a day. But 1,000 words a day is like, as long as there's nothing pressing, I should be able to get that done. Especially with the way I am with the budgets and whatever. I wrote 1,000 words before I did the live stream, so fantastic. Now before we get to our final segment, I want to ask you, just for the fun of it, what are your 3 favorite concepts? And by that I mean, mine are cyberpunk, Star Trek, sci-fi. Like, they're both sci-fi. That's what I mean. Like, concepts as in cyberpunk, like RoboCop, Star Trek, like especially old school Trek, and I would say high fantasy, as in what Tolkien did and what everybody else just ran and did with it, and the fact that you have all these offshoots. You give me those 3 concepts, especially with me, I like to wet them all together. I could just swim in that forever. I could write and write and write and write. I already wrote a bunch
Sure.
of books like that. And it's just, ever since I was a kid, that stuff, it's just like, it's perfect for a daydream when you're trapped in something, when you're trapped in, oh, I don't want to be here. I don't want to be at this store. I don't want to be at my desk. You're just like, man, just dip into RoboCop, just dip into Trek, those
Mm-hmm.
concepts shape the creative path. Now, Amber, how about you? Like, and it's no big deal, but what are your 3 favorite concepts? Like the way I just put it.
Well, I really like portal fantasies, and wrote one of those myself, but I'm going to have to rewrite that again. It's the characters still read like they were written by a 12-year-old because I created them when I was 12, so I need to develop them better.
Mm-hmm.
No, it probably needs to
Yeah.
redraft. Yeah, from being that far back.
Yeah. And let's see what else. I like redemption arcs in my stories, but not like overdone ones like they have nowadays, where it's like, oh, you've got to redeem everybody.
Yeah, no,
I like,
I dig it. Yeah,
More like a
but I
Christmas
like
Carol.
yeah, I like a Christmas Carol, the well done redemption arcs.
Hmm.
right on, right on.
Let's
Or
see if,
Shawshank,
yeah. Let's
in
see,
a
is
way.
there a third one I like? Um,
Hmm.
just anything with magic in it is cool.
Yeah. So the concept of magic, those 3 are very respectable, and when they're done right, they make all the difference. And I could easily fold those into the mixture too, and it would just be better. Very good response. Tom, how about you? 3 favorite concepts after
I'd
the
have to say
fashion.
in invasions, outer space, inner space, just our regular mundane world being intruded upon by something from the outside or inside, right?
That's awesome.
Invasion.
Yeah.
My other one is nature out of balance.
Mm,
I write a lot about my Florida novels about that. Like the Day of the Triffids is a perfect example of
I
nature out of
remember that.
balance.
I
Right?
remember that flick. Yeah.
The
The
trouble with tribbles is
footballs
nature out of balance from Star Trek, right? I mean, anything
after,
where,
after a fashion.
again,
Yeah.
where our world gremlins is nature out of balance.
Super nature out of
Something
balance.
something innocent that isn't really so innocent, you know. So,
Yep.
and
Yep.
my third concept is other worlds. Again, from outer space, from other dimensions, from under the earth. Um, Something again that will break a character's, intrude on a character's world view. It could be a single thing, you know, or like that story about Kate. She's settling in her world. She's got a job and everything, and all of a sudden these people are trying to kill her. That's another world situation. She's jumped into another world, so to speak. Her world's been disrupted, and
I'm
those
hip. I'm
those
hip.
three concepts will keep me going forever.
No, right
So
on, right on. I balance all those, man. You could do almost anything with that. Very respectable. Good answers, one and all, and a great show. Thanks a lot for listening again, folks. This is JWC Livestream, Story Autopsy with Ricky and Tom. And now we're going to do our plugs. Go to joeswritersclub.com. Go sign up at joeswriters.club. And please go to our YouTube, JWC YouTube channel, and like and subscribe, share, please. We're trying to further our writing community and bring benefit to all these creatives, and we need your help. We need your support. So we thank you for that. I am plugging my book, Babbletron After the Fire, which that's a little selfish because I just did a whole pre-live stream of it, but nevertheless, please buy Babbletron. Go to Amazon.com. Richard Andrew Olkus, Babbletron After the Fire. It's a dystopian cyberpunk book. Amber, what are you plugging today?
I have my Death's Nightmares series. I get the final version of Death's Gamble back from my editor tomorrow, and
nice.
I'm gonna have to prioritize making those changes over other types of work, but I'll have that one ready to go October 1st, like I promised KDP.
Oh yeah, I gotta keep your word. Amber Danson, go check her out. Death's Nightmare. And what was the other one called?
Death's Gamble.
Death's Gamble. All right, folks. She's got great stuff. Go buy some. Tom, how about you, man? What are you plugging today?
I have my 2 story collections. The first one, Dwellers in the Shadows, available on Kindle, electric, paperback, and hardcover. And my second collection just hit recently, Is It Still Out There? Again, on Kindle, electronic, paperback, hardcover. There's some, got some pretty decent reviews and some good reads out of it, and working on 3 or 4 more collections probably by the end of the year. So it'll be a lot of fun.
Please do, Tom. The more the merrier. Go check him out, Tom Tiernan, Amazon, Dwellers in the Shadows. Thanks again for listening to JWC Livestream, folks. You guys take care. Stay creative, okay? And thank you both for being on the show. Bye-bye.